What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that I have been putting off for a long time because I wanted to wait until like at least the midpoint of Wano to make this video, because I'm going to be talking about my ranking of top 10 Zoans, and since Wano is probably going to at least like double the amount of zones currently in the verse, I figured it'd be better to wait till then. But I mean, it's really going to take forever for us to get to that point. Who really knows when he's going to stop introducing more zones? So I figure, I could just make this now and maybe make like an updated version in a year or two, probably more like 2 years. So I figure, why don't we just give it a shot? Keep in mind one thing about this is that I am kind of going to be speculating a little bit on people's hybrid forms. I know I would say for the most part, we have not seen a lot of zone users use hybrid forms, but I'm pretty sure the vast majority of them, if not all of them, have some type of hybrid form. And I think that that is generally the most effective form in a combat situation. So I'm just kind of gonna assume that everyone can do it and kind of just imagine what that would be like. That might kind of be a stupid thing to do, but like I said, I think the hybrid form is by far the most useful form in a like 1v1 combat situation, so I kind of just have to do it. So yeah, whatever, let's just do this shit. So coming in at the number 10 spot, and it might surprise some people that it made my list, but I have the Giraffe fruit. You may not think it belongs on this list, but really think about it. I mean, it's just as Kaku was saying during his fight, it is not to be underestimated. Everyone was laughing at it, and it is kind of silly that it is a giraffe, but he was able to demonstrate that it most certainly does have a lot of combat potential. I mean, consider the fact that he had just barely eaten that fruit. It had probably been a few hours, and he had already developed a lot of abilities with. Like, in that very short time and during his battle with Zoro, he was actually able to use 13 different unique abilities. Sure, that's kind of a skewed stat because a lot of them were just his devil fruit mixed with the 6 powers, but I mean, come on, at the same time, it's still a lot of abilities. I think Kaku was able to demonstrate that if you can be creative and if you are given enough time to work with this devil fruit, it can very much be very useful in its hybrid form. And coming in at number 9, I have the falcon fruit. I think this is a pretty strong fruit. It was introduced very early in the series, so people might kind of think it's not too good, but I think it's definitely up there. I mean, like Pell does explain, it is one of the only fruits in the One Piece verse that can actually give you the ability to fly. And I guess now that we're deeper in the series, you could probably say that a lot of Paramecias and Logias could fly as well, so at the very least, it is one of the only zones that can allow you to fly. But still, I mean, you have to be pretty goddamn creative to use a Paramecia to fly for the most part. I mean, we have Luffy using his bounce man. That whole flying thing is just outrageous. And Dofi, always using his strings to connect to clouds and buildings and whatnot. Which, I mean, by all accounts, he can pretty much fly anytime he wants. But yeah, like I've said in a lot of my previous videos, I do think having the ability to freely fly around in a combat situation gives you a massive advantage. I don't think that, being a bird is going to allow you to like free fly, I suppose, because you kind of need to flap and move forward. It's just like how an airplane works. But I still think it would give you a decent advantage if you were able to use certain strategies while fighting. Someone like Zoro wouldn't like this kind of fruit because of these tactics you'd have to use, but if it was given to someone who was okay with using like hit and run kind of tactics, just maybe kind of flying into the air and then coming in hot, going for like one tough strike and then flying back again, I could see someone using this fruit very effectively. And then coming in at number 8, and these next two are probably the lamest on this list, but I think they are pretty powerful. At number 8, I have the wolf fruit. We got another CP9 member, of course. They had a lot of zones and a lot of them were pretty strong. I think this fruit's pretty good. It doesn't do anything crazy like I was just saying about the giraffe fruit and the falcon fruit allowing you to fly, but it just pretty much gives you a massive physical strength buff, which seemed to be about as good as he was describing it, which he was pretty much just sucking it off the entire time. You do also get claws and fangs. Fangs I'm not really seeing too much of a use for, but claws being, a decent buff. But I do think the real key here is that you get just a massive physical strength buff. I mean, you really can't go wrong with that, right? If it doesn't really hinder your human movement, which it doesn't when he's in his hybrid form, then that's pretty good. I mean, if you got one guy who doesn't have a devil fruit and he's just a pretty strong guy, and then you just give him a devil fruit that just increases his physical power, power, that can't be a bad thing, right? It definitely could help anyone in any situation. Also, while it's not really something that was like shown in One Piece, I could totally see a situation where maybe he is in some kind of smoke screen and is able to smell somebody out. That's pretty specific, but I mean, it could most certainly happen. I could see him getting some combat potential out of his nose as well. And then at number 7, like I said, another lame one, I do have Lucci's Leopard fruit. Like I was just explaining, there is not too much to this fruit. He also has some pretty sharp teeth and he has claws. Pretty much, for the most part, it is just a massive physical strength buff. The reason I have it higher than the wolf fruit is I think just, you know, generally speaking, a leopard is probably more powerful than a wolf. I have confirmed that wolves can be significantly heavier than a leopard, but, I mean, that is a pretty big factor in a fight, I guess, but I don't know. Leopards are most certainly faster and more agile. I just, when I think of, like, a cat, like a big cat, like a lion or a leopard or a cheetah or something, I mean, that is, like, the scariest land animal I can think of. I guess there's bigger things, like maybe a hippo or something would be pretty terrifying, but if I was up against, like, a big cat in just a fight, I would think, like, I am so fucked. Like, there is no chance for me to do anything. This is like, I mean, there's a reason the lions are called the king of the jungle, right? Like, they're just monsters. So I wasn't exactly sure if the wolf or leopard one would be better, but they pretty much do the same thing anyway. I think the leopard might just have a little bit of an edge. And next on the list at number 6, I have Onigumo's unknown, it's the spider fruit, right? Like, it's the spider fruit, I'm pretty sure. It's never actually been given a name or really been discussed by characters in the One Piece world, but he does grow 8 legs, and then he also has the giant butt like a spider, so I think by all accounts it is the spider fruit, which I think is actually pretty crazy. I really wish they would have given it to a stronger character and we could have seen more from it, because that's pretty cool. I think the biggest asset of this fruit is that he is able to wield a total of 8 swords at once. I think that's pretty nuts. I mean, Zoro makes a pretty big deal in his backstory and kind of throughout the series that having more swords just makes you more powerful. I know that that's not as simple as, like, Shanks has 1 sword, right? There's more to it. But, I mean, even a strong swordsman like Zoro does have logic kind of like that to an extent. And being able to wield 8 swords at a time, I mean, come on, that's pretty nuts. Just think of Killer Bee from Naruto when he was able to wield 8 swords at once. That was a little bit different than the way it's going down here, but it was pretty interesting to say the least. I do think that alone makes this Devil Fruit extremely powerful, and also I would like to add, while we haven't confirmed that this is technically possible, I cannot imagine that this guy would not be able to use, like, some kind of web to an extent. I mean, come on, if this guy's gonna be a spider and he can't make a web, then what even is this? I don't think I need to go too into detail as to what you could do with webs. I mean, there's a lot of different superheroes and whatnot that have abilities based on webs. Even Dofi, while using his string fruit, pretty much made a spider web as one of his abilities. It's pretty good. You could probably shoot, like, long-range, sticky things that could trap people or whatever. You could make some kind of net around someone. I think it'd be pretty OP of a fruit. It's already pretty decent with the swords, and the web's just bonus, really. Next on the list at number 5, I have Chopper's human fruit. I think that it is a very powerful fruit. I think it's totally underrated. It seems like a lot of people think that the only thing it can really do is make a animal relevant in the story. I don't think that's the case at all. I'm pretty surprised people think that, honestly. Like, he's been shown to do some crazy stuff with this Devil Fruit that doesn't even really make any sense. I mean, I understand that he used to have to use a rumble ball and whatnot, and he still kind of does with his monster form, but why does he have so many different forms? Like, no other zone has anything even close to what he can do. He can adapt to so many different combat situations with all of these different forms. He's made a lot of use out of his actually just kind of normal human, abominable snowman form. He's been able to use his horn point a lot. I'm actually surprised at how powerful that was. He's able to use his guard point a lot. That has been very useful in the past. I was very impressed by his kung fu point. I don't really understand how it works or why that form, like why it looks like that and it's called kung fu. Like, I get that he's using kung fu moves, but why does it look so strange? I don't know. But it seems to be very effective. He seems to be very fast when he's using it, and he's able to seriously kick some ass, so I think that's very powerful. And of course, the one that most people always go to, the one that I think is a little overrated, is the monster point. I do think it's very good for taking out fodder, but I don't really think it's that powerful in like a 1v1 scenario. though. Even if he is completely conscious now and knows what's going on, is able to control that form, I just don't really see it giving too much of an advantage in a 1v1 scenario. Even though he is probably a lot stronger, of course, I don't think he's like that fast, right? Like, I mean, just look in Attack on Titan, the Colossal Titan, which is by far the biggest, is supposed to be the most powerful, but really, I mean, he can barely even handle taking on a single Survey Corps member, so when you get that big, you kind of get too slow, and it's just not that good. But yes, overall, with all of these points you are able to use once you become decent enough with this fruit, I think that it is an exceptionally powerful zone. And coming in number 4, I have Jack's Mammoth Fruit. This is one of those situations where I just kind of have to speculate a lot because, well, we haven't really seen a hybrid form from Jack. I think that while he is in his giant mammoth form, he kind of does suffer the same thing that Chopper does when he's using his monster point, like I was just saying. I think that being that giant is pretty good for taking out fodder. He's able to destroy buildings and whatnot quite easily. But if you're in a 1v1 situation, that's not too good. It's not, like, horrible. I could see him using his trunk a lot and just really not taking much damage while like that. But I don't think it's particularly good. On the other hand, though, I would say if he is in his hybrid form, I would imagine it's going to be very large. It's probably going to give him a massive physical strength buff, just like how Lucci and Jabra were able to. I mean, this is the ancient mammoth, so it is completely massive. If you were able to see how large he really was, then I think we can guess that it's probably going to make him extremely physically strong in the same way as them, but even more so. So I think it's got to be up here. I can't wait for Wano when we get to see him fighting and we get to see his hybrid form, because I think it's going to blow our minds. And then coming in number 3, again, I do apologize, but I do, again, have to do this whole speculating what the hybrid form would be like. I have X-Drake's Fruit. I think that he is definitely going to be very powerful when he's using his hybrid form. His full-blown T-Rex form is not that bad, I suppose, but it's not, you know, like, insane. I mean, he could use his tail, maybe. He could bite people, I guess, but this is the One Piece world, right? That's not that effective. On the other hand, though, I do think that his hybrid form is going to be nuts. I think he'll be able to move very quickly. He could probably use his tail more quickly as well and just be able to, like, swing it around with, obviously, hockey clad. The only real question I have is he going to be able to use his 2 weapons if he has super short arms in his hybrid form? I figure he should be able to. He'll probably be able to move very quickly, be able to do some spin kind of moves with his tail, and I think that as long as his arms are long enough, it's going to be an extremely powerful. And then at number 2, you guys already know what the number 1 and 2 spot. At number 2, I have the Buddha Fruit. It's kind of hard to pick between this and the number 1 one, but I think that we don't really know too much about this fruit yet to make it better than that. Not just is he able to get very large, so obviously significantly more powerful, far more than the other Zoans that we've seen, but he seems to be able to move it at the same speed he always is, so it's not like a monster point problem or anything like that. But a huge reason that this is up here is because it seems to have an ability very, very similar to the Quake Fruit. Pretty much he can make like golden shockwaves. I'm not exactly sure how that works or how powerful it is compared to the Quake Fruit, but it seems to have done quite a bit of damage. I mean, he was able to do damage to the Blackbeard pirates, which seem to be some of the most formidable people in the One Piece world. And also, while some people may not appreciate this, I also believe that there's just like no way that there's not more to it. I mean, this is a mythical Zoan and it is a golden Buddha. Like, he's gonna have some crazy ass abilities that we haven't seen so far, possibly even more powerful than his shockwave. So for now, we'll just have to wait and see. I think even with just what we've seen so far, it's already nuts. It probably belongs here anyway. But if he does get more abilities, I could very well see him taking the number 1 spot. And then, of course, you must have guessed that the number 1 fruit has to be the Phoenix Fruit. I mean, is it really any surprise there? It's one of my favorite fruits in all of One Piece. It's so awesome. It's very powerful. Marco is able to regenerate for who knows how long, honestly. I know there is supposedly some kind of limit to how much he can actually regenerate, but I have to imagine it is extremely high considering the fact that he was willing to just eat Kizaru's damage he was dishing on him. He's just launching these balls of energy at him, and he doesn't care. He's not even dodging him. He's just letting his flames completely tank it. No problem, and he goes in for the hit. It's insane. This fruit is so powerful, I can't believe it. Its defensive abilities with its healing is off the charts. He does have the ability of flight, which seems to be even better than the Falcons, which is kind of weird since, like, really, why should it be? But, I mean, we've seen this guy. I'm not sure if this is a ability specifically for the Phoenix Fruit, because maybe it's a mythical Zoan that you can do this or something, but he is able to transform only parts of his body, which is clearly very useful based on the fact that he can, like, you know, untransform the lower half of his body so he can kick people like how he did with Kizaru while keeping his wings still active. I don't think there's too much to say here. With his ability to fly along with his ridiculous, completely outrageous regeneration abilities, I think that not just is this clearly the strongest Zoan fruit at the moment, at least until maybe more mythical zones are introduced or the Buddha fruit gets some kind of buff, but I think it's actually one of the strongest fruits in the entire series. Easily top 10. So that is my top 10 Zoan fruits. I know you guys are wanting to see this for a while, and I finally decided, you know what, let's just do it. Let's do it on a Wednesday. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about this video, if you enjoyed it, if you thought that my rankings were just completely ridiculous, they didn't make any sense, you thought I didn't pick any of these properly, the mythical zones weren't even the best on this list. If you do disagree with me, make sure to comment your list, what you think I said wrong, and maybe even take it a step further, check the description and join my Discord. There are tons of people you could debate this with. You can come yell at me if you want. You can just DM me. I have my DMs open. You can yell at me all you want. I respond to almost everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have an excellent rest of your day, and I'll talk to you on Friday.